Hello. Morning. Uh, Hi. How's it going? Whew. Good morning. Good morning. What we're doing today is basically just kind of going through it. We're still in Leviticus. Today's devotional video is about sacrifice and atonement and their purpose. It's attached to the link, along with the overview video of Leviticus, the general Leviticus explanation. I think that's everything. Yeah, there wasn't really much in terms of like all the overview videos there as well. And then as far as what we've read already, I just feel like we're in the instruction manual. Like, this is what to do when you reach certain. This is like the training course, I guess. No? Training course? Training implies more hands-on. This is like orientation to the Israelites. This is their orientation for them to figure out or learn more about how to set themselves apart as God's holy people, right? That's what it's feeling like. They give instructions for about every standard you can think about, like what to do if their housing is contaminated, what to do if their clothing is contaminated, what to do if their skin is contaminated, what to do in their relationships to prevent those from being contaminated via, sexual sin or doing wrong in a close relationship, sexual relations in a close relationship, a close familial bond, how not to engage in those things. God is telling people these things, like how to handle your offerings for sacrifice, to make yourself pure and clean, to survive, like if you survived, to survive entrance into the tabernacle. He's giving them instructions on what's making you clean and unclean, because you need to know specifically, like if you're gonna go into his presence, like know what's making you clean and unclean, because being unclean and then trying to enter the Lord's presence is gonna get you killed. It's like something so good, it's dangerous to touch when you're not careful, when you're not treating it preciously. So he's giving all of these instructions, and he's giving them to Moses from inside the tabernacle, and Moses is outside the tabernacle. So Moses is getting these instructions as the Lord calls to Moses from inside the tabernacle. And then we're pretty much just really getting more and more instructions. But today's devotional video was about animal sacrifice in the Bible and its purpose. Because when we read through the chapters we've read through so far, we've gotten a lot of like instruction on how to sacrifice, which animals to sacrifice, which animals are okay to sacrifice and not. What to do with the parts after sacrifice, what to expect if the sacrifice is interrupted by someone doing something wrong, in terms of like eating it on the third day or not eating it at all, or killing the animal improperly. There are many things which could derail a sacrifice. And we're getting more and more instruction about that. So I think this video really wanted to explain the purpose in a clearer, or as clear as they understood the purpose to be. It says that God is on a mission to remove evil from his good world, along with all of its corrosive effects. However, he wants to do it in a way that does not involve removing humans. Yeah, because that would pretty much kill us. That's how he did it for Noah, during Noah. He saw how corrosive and how extensive human sin was becoming. And he was like, well, it's gotta go. And the plan was to flood it all. But he found favor with this one human and their family. Their family, because he found favor with Noah, he granted favor to the ones Noah cared about. So he found favor with all those people. Gave them instruction and methods to survive, and then flooded the rest of humanity because he was trying to remove their sin from the world. In this video on sacrifice and atonement, we trace the theme of God's covering over human evil through animal sacrifices that ultimately point to Jesus and his death and resurrection. So God's covering, right, is placed upon us because after he does this flooding in Noah, sacrifices, maybe I would have to track this more when I go back, but sacrifices seem to become a little bit more prevalent after the flood. Maybe it's just because it's being repeated and read, and it's being articled here. But basically, God does this flooding, and he grieves, and he promises that he will never again kill every creature on the earth for human sin. So he has to come up, so he gives the Isrealites another way to cover their sin, to atone for their sin, to ask for forgiveness from their sin, and forgiveness for their sin. He does all of this through the sacrifices of certain animals and the blood sprinkling of certain animals. So yeah, go watch the video, see what you take from it, and then try to keep that in mind as you go through the reading and see if that impact of what the video is telling you makes helps the reading come to life. Now we're in instructions for the priests. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the priests, the descendants of Aaron. A priest must not make himself ceremonially unclean by touching the dead body of a relative. The only expectations are his close relatives, his mother or father, son or daughter, brother, or his virgin sister who depends on him because she has no husband. But a priest must not defile himself and make himself unclean for someone who's related to him only by marriage." So not his wife or his in-laws. The priest must not shave their heads or trim their beards or cut their bodies. The cut the bodies thing, that came up before, and now it was through me for a little while, but like piercings. They must be set apart as holy to their God, and must never bring shame on the name of God. They must be holy, for they are the ones who present the special gifts to the Lord, gifts of food for their God. The priest may not marry a woman defiled by prostitution, and they may not marry a woman who is divorced from her husband, for the priests are set apart as holy to their God. You must treat them as holy because they offer up food to your God. You must consider them holy because I, the Lord, am holy, and I make you holy. If the priest's daughter defiles herself by becoming a prostitute, she also defiles her father's holiness, and she must be burned to death. The high priest has the highest rank of all the priests. The anointing oil has been poured on his head, and he has been ordained to wear the priestly garments. He must never leave his hair uncombed or tear his clothing. He must not defile himself by going near a dead body. He may not make himself ceremonially unclean even for his father or mother. He must not defile the sanctuary of his God by leaving it to attend to a dead person, for he has been made holy by anointing oil of his God. I am the Lord. I don't have to figure out how to time these because getting straight into it with a raw voice is not smart. The high priest may marry only a virgin. He may not marry a widow, a woman who's divorced, a woman who had defiled herself by prostitution. She must be a virgin from his own clan, so that he will not dishonor his descendants among his clan, for I am the Lord who makes him holy. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to Aaron. In all future generations, none of your descendants who has any defect will qualify to offer food to his God. No one who has a defect qualifies, whether he is blind, lame, disfigured, deformed, or has a broken foot or arm, or is hunchbacked or dwarfed, or has a defective eye, or skin sores or scabs, or damaged testicles. No descendant of Aaron who has a defect may approach the altar to present special gifts to the Lord. Since he has a defect, he may not approach the altar to offer food to his God. However, he may eat from the food offered to God, including the holy offerings and the most holy offerings. Yet because of his physical defect, he may not enter the room behind the inner curtain or approach the altar, for this would defile my holy places. I am the Lord who makes them holy." So Moses gave these instructions to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites. It's a little cold in here. So. Ooh, gotta be sure. Okay. Let's see. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons to be very careful with the sacred gifts that the Israelites set apart for me, so they do not bring shame on my holy name. I am the Lord. Give them the following instruction. In all future generations, if any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean when he approaches the sacred offerings that the people of Israel consecrate to the Lord, he must be cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. If any of Aaron's descendants has a skin disease or any kind of discharge that makes him ceremonially unclean, he must not eat from the sacred offerings until he has been pronounced clean. He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse, or by giving an emission of semen, He also becomes unclean by touching a corpse, or by having an emission of semen, or by touching a small animal that is unclean, or by touching someone who is ceremonially unclean for any reason. The man who is defiled in any of these ways will remain unclean until evening. He must not eat from the sacred offerings until he has bathed himself in water. When the sun goes down, he will be ceremonially clean again and may eat from the sacred offerings, for this is his food. He may not eat an animal that has died a natural death or has been torn apart by wild animals, for this would defile him. I am the Lord. The priests must follow my instructions carefully. Otherwise, they will be punished for their sin and will die for violating my instructions. I am the Lord who makes them holy. No one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. Even guests and hired workers in a priest's home are not allowed to eat them. However, if the priest buys a slave for himself, the slave may eat from the sacred offerings. And if his slaves have children, they also may share his food. If a priest's daughter marries someone outside the priestly family, she may no longer eat the sacred offerings. But if she becomes a widow or is divorced and has no children to support her, and she returns to live in her father's home as in her youth, she may eat her father's food again. Otherwise, no one outside of the priest's family may eat the sacred offerings. So the thing with the daughter being married and not being allowed to eat makes sense to me, because once she's married, by law she becomes part of another family, and therefore she is outside of the priest's family. But if something were to happen to her husband that separates her from that other family, and she returns to live with her father again and be his dependent, quote unquote, to live in his family again as a member of his household, she can once again eat in sacred offerings. Any such person who eats the sacred offerings without realizing it must pay the priest for the amount eaten, plus an additional 20%. The priest must not let Israelites defile the sacred offerings brought to the Lord by allowing unauthorized people to eat them. This would bring guilt upon them and require them to pay compensation. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Worthy and unworthy offerings. And the Lord said to Moses, "Give Aaron and his sons and all the Israelites these instructions, which apply to native Israelites and to the foreigners living among you. If you present a gift as a burnt offering to the Lord, whether it is to fulfill a vow or is a voluntary offering, you will be accepted only if your offering is a male animal with no defects. It may be a bull, a ram, or a male goat. Do not present an animal with defects, because the Lord will not accept it on your behalf. If you present a peace offering to the Lord from the herd or the flock, whether it is to fulfill a vow or a voluntary offering, you must offer a perfect animal. It may have no defect of any kind. You must not offer an animal that is blind, crippled, or injured, or that is a skin sore, or that has a wart, a skin sore, or scabs. Such animals must never be offered on the altar as special gifts to the Lord. If a bull or ram has a leg that is too long or too short, it may be offered as a voluntary offering, but it may not be offered to fulfill a vow. If an animal has damaged testicles or is castrated, you may not offer it to the Lord. You must never do this in your own land, and you must not accept such an animal from foreigners and then offer it as a sacrifice to your God. Such animals will not be accepted on your behalf, for they are mutilated or defective. Basically, these animals that are offered for sacrifice, they are to cover you from your sin. They're to cover us from our sin, to make us right by the Lord by offering this life in our stead. Basically, being so sinful, it requires the removal of sin. To prevent the removal of sin from being us, from us being removed, He gives us this animal to take our place. And we lay our hands on it to symbolically transfer our sin onto this animal. But since we're symbolically transferring our sin and we're going to make this animal clean, this clean animal unclean, it can't be an unclean animal that dies it can't be an unclean animal that dies for our sins. That's like an invalid sacrifice. It's like wearing dirty clothes to like a special event. You do everything you can to wear clean clothes to an event because you want your coverings to be clean. So there can be nothing wrong with these animals that make them fall short of being themselves clean. Because they need the room to take on our uncleanliness. Okay, that's what I'm getting. No defects, no mutilations, no skin sores, no nothing. And the Lord said to Moses, when a calf or lamb or goat is born, it must be left with its mother for 7 days. From the 8th day on, it will be acceptable as a special gift to the Lord. But you must not slaughter a mother animal and her offspring on the same day, whether from a herd or the flock. When you bring a thanksgiving offering to the Lord, sacrifice it properly so you will be accepted. Eat the entire sacrificial animal on the day it is presented. Do not leave any of it until the next morning. I am the Lord. You must faithfully keep all my commands by putting them into practice, for I am the Lord. Do not bring shame on my holy name, for I will display my holiness among the people of Israel. I am the Lord who makes you holy. It was I who rescued you from the land of Egypt, that I might be your God. I am the Lord. The appointed festivals. The Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. This is the Lord's appointed festival, which you are to proclaim as official days for holy assembly. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day to complete rest. Sabbath day of complete rest. An official day for holy assembly. It is the Lord's Sabbath day, and it must be observed whether you and it must be observed wherever you live. In addition to the Sabbath, these are the Lord's appointed festivals, the official days for holy assembly that are to be celebrated at their proper times each year. Passover and the festival of unleavened bread. The Lord's Passover begins at sundown on the 14th day of the first month. On the next day, the 15th day of the next month, you must begin celebrating the festival of unleavened bread. This festival to the Lord continues for 7 days, and during that time the bread you eat must be made without yeast. On the first day of the festival, all the people must stop their ordinary work and observe an official day for holy assembly. For 7 days you must present special gifts to the Lord. On the 7th day, the people must again stop all their ordinary work to observe an official day for holy assembly. Celebration of first harvest. Then the Lord said to Moses, give the following instructions to the people of Israel. When you enter the land I am giving you, and you harvest its first crops, bring the priest a bundle of grain from the first cutting of your grain harvest. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest will lift it up before the Lord so it may be accepted on your behalf. On that same day you must sacrifice a 1-year-old male lamb with no defects as a burnt offering to the Lord. With it you must present a grain offering consisting of 4 quarts of choice flour moistened with olive oil. It will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. You must offer 1 quart of wine as a liquid offering. Do not eat any bread or roasted grain or fresh kernels on that day until you bring this offering to your God. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation, wherever you live. The festival of harvest. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you bring the bundle of grain to be lifted up as a special offering, count off 7 full weeks. Keep counting until the day after the 7th Sabbath, 15 days later. Then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves of bread to be lifted up before the Lord as a special offering. Make these loaves from 4 quarts of choice flour and bake them with yeast. They will be an offering to the Lord from the first of your crops. Along with the bread, present 7 1-year-old male lambs with no defects, one young bull, and 2 rams as burnt offerings to the Lord. These burnt offerings, together with the grain offerings and liquid offerings, will be a special gift, a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Then you must offer 1 male goat as a sin offering and 2 one-year-old male lambs as a peace offering. The priest will lift up the 2 lambs as a special offering to the Lord, together with the loaves representing the first of your crops. These offerings, which are holy to the Lord, belong to the priest. The same day will be proclaimed an official day for Holy Assembly, a day on which you do no ordinary work. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God. I think the reason you leave it for the poor is obvious. The poor got to eat too. But the reason you leave it for the foreigners among you is because I think in those times, foreigners could not purchase lands or own plots of lands, without some exceptions, on the land given to, on the land for the native people. So they would need some way to acquire crops and grain. They would need some way to acquire these materials, not only to eat, but to sacrifice. And by leaving a portion of your field untouched, the edges, and leaving anything that is dropped by the harvesters, that could be accidental. Or, to me, that things like when you drop something, it's accidental from time to time, or purposeful, or you didn't get to the harvesting time and it fell, or there are reasons why these things would touch the ground before harvesting, before the harvester gets to it. But this shows a great deal of generosity for the people around you. Like, it's not all about you when you harvest. It's not all about having everything that's there, about picking up every bit of grain, a crop, and making sure that it's yours and that you can make some sort of, that you can eat it, or that you can make some sort of profit off of it. It's about having this land you cultivated, being blessed with this harvest from the Lord, and then trickling that blessing onto the people who are less fortunate. Spreading the wealth. It's literally saying your duty is to spread the wealth. The Festival of Trumpets. The Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel, and on the first day of the anointed month in early autumn, you are to observe a day of complete rest. It will be an official day for Holy Assembly, a day commemorated with loud blasts of a trumpet. You must do no ordinary work on that day. Instead, you are to present a special gift to the Lord." The Day of Atonement. This is when everyone, once a year, gets made right. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Be careful to celebrate the Day of Atonement on the 10th day of the same month, 9 days after the Festival of Trumpets. You must observe it as an official day for Holy Assembly, a day to deny yourselves and present special gifts to the Lord. Do not work that entire day, because it is the Day of Atonement, when offerings of purification are made for you, making you right with the Lord your God. All who do not deny themselves that day will be cut off from God's people. and I will destroy anyone among you who does any work on that day. You must not do any work at all. This is a permanent law for you, and it must be observed from generation to generation wherever you live. This will be a Sabbath day of complete rest for you, and on that day you must deny yourselves. This day of rest will begin at sundown on the 9th day of the month and extend until sundown on the 10th day. The Festival of Shelters. And the Lord said to Moses, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. Begin celebrating the Festival of Shelters on the 15th day of the appointed month, 5 days after the Day of Atonement. This festival to the Lord will last for 7 days. On the first day of the festival, you must proclaim an official day for Holy Assembly, when you do no ordinary work. For 7 days, you must present special gifts to the Lord. The 8th day is another holy day on which you present your special gifts to the Lord. This will be a solemn occasion, and no ordinary work may be done that day. These are the Lord's appointed festivals. Celebrate them each year as official days for Holy Assembly by presenting special gifts to the Lord, burnt offerings, grain offerings, sacrifices, and liquid offerings, each on its proper day. These festivals must be observed in addition to the Lord's regular Sabbath days, and the offerings are in addition to your personal gifts, the offerings you give to fulfill your vows, and the voluntary offerings you present to the Lord. Remember that the 7th-day festival is to the Lord. The Festival of Shelters begins on the 15th day of the appointed month after you have harvested all the produce of the land. The first day and the 8th day of the festival will be days of complete rest. On the first day, gather branches from magnificent trees, palm fronds, boughs from leafy trees, and willows that grow by the streams. Then celebrate with joy before the Lord your God for 7 days. You must observe this festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. This is a permanent law for you. It must be observed in the appointed month from generation to generation. For 7 days you must live outside the little shelters. All native-born Israelites must live in shelters. This will remind each new generation of Israelites that I made their ancestors live in shelters when I rescued them from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Moses gave the Israelites these instructions regarding the annual festivals of the Lord. I think a lot of the festivals are like God being like, you can't forget who I am and what I've done to you, so celebrate. I feel like that's the gist. People like to know why they're celebrating. They like to know where all this joyous energy is supposed to come from. And usually the reason behind, like if you go to a party, you know why you're there sometimes. Most of the time. And if you don't know when you got there, you know while being there. I'm sure you'd figure it out. So it feels like it's one way to ensure that the stories of God's Exodus, the story of how far God went for his people, how far he went to provide for his people, how far he went to rescue his people, and how far he went to shelter his people, it becomes like, okay, Celebrate these things from generation to generation on these specific moments so that when a child looks up to you who knows nothing about these things, goes, why are we celebrating on this day? You can give them the express story. Oh, this is to represent when the Lord passed through Egypt, killing all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians, so that the Pharaoh would let us go. But during Passover, every Israelite family was spared from such a fate. So then you spread the story. It ensures that celebrating keeps the oral history alive. And it ensures that even if you're cut off from even if you're an orphaned child, if the whole community is celebrating these days, you're going to learn that it's not just some other father passing this on down to their child. It's the community keeping it alive amongst themselves. So Psalms 37. A Psalm of David. Don't worry about the wicked, or envy those who do wrong. For like grass, they soon fade away. Like spring flowers, they soon wither. Trust in the Lord and do good. Then you will live safely in the land and prosper. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord. Trust him, and he will help you. He will make your innocence radiant like the dawn, and the justice of your cause will shine like the noonday sun. Be still in the presence of the Lord and wait patiently for him to act. Don't worry about evil people who prosper, or fret about their wicked schemes. Stop being angry. Turn from your rage. Do not lose your temper. It only leads to harm. For the wicked will be destroyed, but those who trust the Lord will possess the land. Soon the wicked will disappear, and though you look for them, they will be gone. The lowly will possess the land and will live in peace and prosperity. The wicked plot against the godly. They snarl at them in defiance, but the Lord just laughs, and he sees their day of judgment coming. The wicked draw their swords and string their bows to kill the poor and the oppressed, to slaughter those who do right. But their swords will stab their own hearts, and their bows will be broken. It is better to be godly and have little than to be evil and rich, for the strength of the wicked will be shattered, but the Lord takes care of the godly. Day by day, the Lord takes care of the innocent, and they will receive an inheritance that lasts forever. They will not be disgraced in hard times. Even in famine, they will have more than enough. But the wicked will die. The Lord's enemies are like flowers in a field. They will disappear like smoke. The wicked borrow and never repay. The wicked borrow and never repay. But the godly are generous givers. Those the Lord blesses will possess the land, but those who he cursed will die. The Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives. Though they stumble, they will never fall, for the Lord holds them by the hand. Once I was young, and now I am old, yet I have never seen the ungodly abandoned, or their children begging for bread. The godly always give generous loans to others, and their children are a blessing. Turn from evil and do good, and you will live in the land forever. For the Lord loves justice, and he will never abandon the godly. He will keep them safe forever, but the children of the wicked will die. The godly will possess the land and will live there forever. The godly offer good counsel. They teach right from wrong. They teach right from wrong. They have made God's law their own, so they will never slip from his path. The wicked wait in ambush for the godly, looking for an excuse to kill them, but the Lord will not let the wicked succeed, or let the godly be condemned when they are put on trial. Put your hope in the Lord. Travel steadily along his path. He will honor you by giving you the land. You will see the wicked destroyed. I have seen wicked and ruthless people flourishing like a tree in its native soil. But when I look again, they were gone. Though I searched for them, I could not find them. Look at those who are honest and good, for a wonderful future awaits those who love peace, but the rebellious will be destroyed. They have no future. The Lord rescues the godly. He is their fortress in times of trouble. The Lord helps them, rescuing them from the wicked. He saves them, and they find shelter in him. What was it? Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? It is Psalms 37, 16 and 15. 16 and 17. Yeah. It is better to be godly and have little than to be evil and rich. For the strength of the wicked will be shattered, but the Lord takes care of the godly. Woo-hoo. This is what I was saying yesterday. I know for certain I would rather be destitute and godly than to have everything and not know who I am anymore. My wickedness is beyond my own mental capacity. Whew, that was a good song right there. The reassurance that yes, you can be godly and have little, but that's better. It's better than any other path you can take. Because you're sheltered from your enemies. You're still provided for. You're looked after. God's not about to let his godly be persecuted. Well, no, not that he's not about to let his godly be persecuted. God will deliver a just verdict upon the godly who are persecuted. I don't really have a prayer that's coming to mind, so I'm just going to end the stream here. Yeah. Have a good day. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow, hopefully at 11. We're aiming for the 11 o'clock hour. Bye.